This is part of the seminar Critical Data Studies to introduce the topic of the course. The topic of the course will be the coronavirus pandemic. It is something our modern world hasn't seen before. Public life is on hold in most parts of the world. Shops are closed, museums, restaurants, swimming pools are closed. People are obliged to work from home and go out as little as possible. Factories stop producing. Kids learn at home. Borders are closing. And holidays are cancelled. This is because the virus is highly lethal for risk groups. And all over the world, research activities concerned with coronavirus are tremendous. Virologists work hard on understanding its spread. Public health institutions endeavor to find appropriate recommendations for the public, and biotech companies are hunting vaccines. Well, but we are neither virologists nor are we public health experts or biotechies. So what can we do? Well, we are good with data, aren't we? What you can see here is a dashboard of corona cases. It is the official dashboard published by the RKI, the German Public Health Institution. And you can see the corona cases for individual countries of Germany. You can split the cases by age groups, by gender, and so on. And what you have to understand with this dashboard is that policy decisions are made based on these visualizations and these aggregations of data. So what we want to ask in our course, what we want to analyze, what we want to research is, where does this data come from? We want to ask, how is the data collected? Is the data reported? Who reports the data? And maybe even how is the data processed? And if we have a look at the predictions that are derived from the data, what do these predictions tell us? This is a prediction of the reproduction number R. What impact do predictions have? How reliable are they? And very important, what models generate these predictions? Are the models complicated? Are they easy to understand? Are they plausible? What parameters were chosen to configure the models, and why? And of course, we want to understand, how is data collected on an international scale? Or is the data reported there? Well, who reports the data for individual countries? Or who collects it? Are there even differences in obtaining numbers in different countries? Does every country have the same criteria and the same tests to identify coronavirus cases? All these are related to, well, data journeys, where your first assignment will be about. But of course, we want to look at other things than just the data. Apple and Google, for example, they recently announced their contribution to dealing with the coronavirus. They announced a group effort in integrating privacy-preserving contact tracing functionality in their devices. So maybe in the near future you will have in any capable Android and iOS device, you may have software to trace all your physical contacts. How should we deal with these kind of projects? We may want to ask, can you even measure distance with Bluetooth? No, you cannot, by the way. We may want to ask, is it reliable? Is it any good? And what does privacy preserving mean? How does this impact my privacy? Who else can trace my contacts? And if you search the Google Play Store for Corona, you actually find apps for related or developed for Corona. Well, you can submit your personal data, your personal fitness data. This app tries to collect your data that you collect from fitness trackers. How should these fitness trackers help public health institutions to monitor the coronavirus pandemic? What data is collected there, and where does this data go? And what does it mean? The last sentence here considers data protection. So, what is this all about? What can you do? Well, choose a topic related to the coronavirus pandemic and investigate. Possible topics, like the ones I just mentioned, are you could research Corona apps. Take the official RKI app that you just saw and have a look at what data is collected. Have a look where the data goes. Have a look what the RKI claims to do with the data. Or have a look at contact tracing apps. I'm sure there are already plenty of them in the Play Store. Look at them and try to see if how confident or how reliable contact tracing is with these kind of apps. Or you could understand the numbers, understand the data, understand the infection curves and the statistical models, and report about them. And for example, look at how complicated the models are, what parameter decisions were made, and why, and where do these parameters come from. You could, of course, also try to reproduce predictions. What's the RKI nowcast when you use data that is 4 days old? What does it mean? And of course you can try to investigate international statistics, as I just mentioned. A few questions. So you could ask how are the differences between countries? How are they handled? How are they reflected in the statistics? All these are possible topics, and I'm sure there are plenty more. Be creative, and convince us that there is a profound research topic behind your question. When you work on your research projects, you should ask yourself, where does the data come from, and what data is collected? You can ask yourself, how is the data processed, or how is the data cleaned or standardized to, for example, account for differences between countries. and what models drive the predictions. And most importantly, are all modeling decisions reported transparently? This is especially important for public health institutions. How do they report parameter decisions? And how do they argue them, or how do they talk about them? And then, of course, this can be, or your research projects can be looking at this from an actor perspective. So you can ask who collects the data or who reports it. You can have a look at the process even. How does the data reporting process work? And of course, from a privacy perspective, who else is granted access to the data? All these are possible research or possible refinement questions, either if you're already working on a specific research topic, when you are about to find additional aspects that you can work on, but of course you can use these questions to come to research questions in the beginning. And our overall aim with this seminar, I mean, we need to go somewhere with this. Our overall aim is that we as researchers should consider the impact of your research objects on everyone's daily lives. So that means, for example, what will a certain prediction, what will it mean for a country's lockdown? When are countries, when is a lockdown decided? And do the models allow for the drawn conclusions and the policy decisions and so on? When you look at prediction models, try to come up with answers for these kind of questions. How's the impact for everyone's daily life? And the second very important part, in my opinion, is that you have a random stranger in mind that you do your research for, and that you should be able to explain your research to. So imagine walking on the street and really talking to a random stranger and try to explain him or her your research. A very important part is the motivation. Why is your research relevant, and what are the key insights of your research? And another very important aspect of this part is that you need to find a speaking narrative that enables you to talk about your research in a way that everyone can understand it. So, putting all these points together, our aim with this course is that we want to inform the public. We, with our skill set, we do have possibilities or capabilities that a random stranger might not have. So use these capabilities for a greater good. Yeah, and if you have any questions, as usual, post them in the Slack. And of course, if you want to discuss research ideas, schedule appointments with us, and we will be happy to help you come to speaking research questions.